Welcome back to Hannity and Combs. Ann Coulter's new book, Godless, the Church of Liberalism, has caused yet another controversy. This time it's what she says about America's public schools. On page 169, Coulter says most public schools are at best expensive babysitting arrangements. At worst, they are criminal training labs where teachers sexually abuse the children between drinking binges and acts of grand larceny. Joining us now, the author of Godless and those fine words, Ann Coulter. Also joining us, Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor, Kirsten Powers. You know, Ann, I've been wrong about you. I've been set straight by Megan Down of the LA Times, by Lee Salem of Universal Press Syndicate, who defends you, who says this is just trenchant satire, and that I have you all wrong. This is just a brilliant satire. The things you say, the things you write when you say Tim McVeigh should have bombed the Times building, we should carpet bomb them to convert them to Christianity, when fragging is why we invented John Murtha. I should be laughing at this. These are old jokes. These are laughable, happy satire. Right?
I like that fragging is why we invented John Murtha.
Oh, you like that? You say, I'm even going to give you material now because I realize this is all comedic satire and that you're actually a liberal who's doing this to mock and parody the way conservatives think.
Well, it's not working very well if that were my goal.
I think that's
I think the Timothy McVeigh line was merely prescient after the New York Times has leapt beyond nonsense straight into treason.
So there you go again, once again reaffirming that we should bomb the New York Times. Isn't now, Kirsten, you got to admit this is great humor. This belongs on Saturday Night Live. It belongs on The Daily Show.
Well, look, I mean, I read the chapter that we're discussing tonight, and I have to say, I have to give it to Ann. I mean, she can turn a phrase. She knows how to get attention. There's no doubt about it. And the issues that she brought up, unfortunately, I have to disagree with you on Ann's behalf. That I think she is serious.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
you really take this seriously?
I think if you read the chapter, she lays out all her reasons that she feels this way, and that the teachers are apparently living the high life on their $40,000 a year.
No sane person would believe those things.
You have missed the boat, Alan. If you were a teacher, you would have really been living it up.
Let's go to this point. Are public schools failing our children?
Yes, I think they are.
Are they expensive babysitting arrangements?
I don't disagree that there are problems in the schools, and I think that there is a problem with the Democratic Party being too beholden to the teachers' unions.
Wow.
Where I do have a problem, and what I think is interesting about Ann's chapter, is that there seems to be this area carved out by Republicans. It's the only place in the universe where the capitalist system does not apply, which means when you say, let's pay them more money, Ann says, no, you don't pay them more money because that's not going to change anything. But in every other area of our society, we attract good people by paying them more.
But that's what vouchers and choice are about. Because if you have $370 billion competitive dollars and you're competing for the students, the best schools with the best reputations and the best educational opportunities will win. And I want to ask you a more as important a question, because we had this Supreme Court decision today. Your background is in constitutional law, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I think it's a dreadful decision.
Yes, and I haven't read the decision. In fact, I think it's a violation of the Geneva Accords to have to read the entire decision. So I don't intend to, but the idea of applying the Geneva Convention to these savages who do not abide by the laws of war. I heard earlier in your panel someone defending the decision, saying the president is subject to checks and balances even in the conduct of the war. Well, not entirely. He is the only man the Constitution gives the commander-in-chief powers to, and you're not going to have checks and balances on determining troop movements or secret attacks and whether to use a daisy cutter or a different sort of weapon. For a war, you do need instant, aggressive, decisive action.
Even more than
that power is given to the commander-in-chief, and I think he should ignore the Supreme Court ruling.
Well, ultimately he said he wouldn't, but I think it's certainly an effort to assert the presidential powers as commander-in-chief, conducting a war. And I think the problem is, I think a lot of people are not viewing this for what it is, Ann, and that is we are at war. These are our enemies. The person we're talking about was Osama bin Laden's driver and bodyguard. And the idea that, you know, Justice Stevens, among others, is that they would cite the Geneva Conventions and more specifically Article 3 and not even refer to this as an international conflict. This is not a domestic conflict. You know, Justice Thomas, God bless him, said, of course this is an international battle.
And more than that, I mean, just so people understand, the whole purpose of the Geneva Convention is so that both sides in a war will follow certain rules of war. It sounds odd to have
and
rules
the Geneva
of war,
Convention applies to international battles. That's why we have a Geneva Convention.
Following it.
And that's what the court
when you fly
said.
planes into buildings, you are not to kill civilians. You are not following the rules of war. The Geneva Convention does not.
I believe in following the Constitution, something the Supreme Court established today. We'll be right back. More with Ann Coulter and Kirsten Powers. And coming up, should Rush Limbaugh face charges for his recent Viagra confiscation?